Good evening. Let me welcome you to this evening's presentation of Mango Tree Dialogues. As you know, this is a forum in which we discuss matters, the issues of the day, really, and issues that I'm sure that are on your mind as they are on mine. I am very grateful for you to having joined me under the mango tree as we distill these issues. Our concern this evening will be with the attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump. And then we're going to have a look at the ongoing problem. Yes, it is a problem that the Democrats are having with regard to settling finally that President Biden is the person who should be going through to the elections in November on the Democratic ticket. And then the last section of the program, we're going to be having a panel discussion. And you know Brian very well, and he'll be joining me, Brian Commission. And he'll be joining me a little later in the program as we talk some more about these issues and see, just exactly where they are in terms of where the country ought to be at this time. So again, welcome, and let's get cracking. The first thing that I would like to, in terms of lighter matters, if it is that light, because it certainly is not, as you will find out, because I'm talking about mosquitoes, that small insect that can cause such grief and has caused so much grief on this planet ever since they started to interact with human beings. There's a little, as I mentioned, mosquitoes, and I remember a little joke that I got, and I'm going to share it with you. Somebody was asked to spell the word mosquito, and the person was not able to spell it. And the person said to the one who asked for it to be spelled, "Why did you give me such a small insect with such a big name to spell? You might have asked me to spell elephant." Might have done a better job at it. Anyway, friends, mosquitoes are a very serious problem. And they become even more so, especially during the summer months, when there is a lot of rain, and they're able to breed up in all kinds of breeding sites. In your home, anywhere there is a container that they can lay their eggs in, they can do that, and many eggs can be laid at any one time, and they pose a problem. There are many diseases, some of which we know, chikungunya, there is dengue, and all kinds of different diseases that mosquitoes spread among human beings. So why I mention them is that I just want to urge you to be very careful at this time. Do everything you can to protect yourself and your children against mosquito bites, because they can be deadly. It doesn't matter where you are. The rains are falling, and the environment is set for the outbreak of diseases caused by mosquitoes. So I would just like to take this opportunity to urge you to make sure that you do everything in your power to ensure that you take care of your surroundings. Make sure that in your yards, I know sometimes we have flower pots out in the yards and they gather water, and that is the perfect breeding ground for mosquitoes. So clear away all the debris from around your house. And I know I'm saying that for myself too, because it's an ongoing task. Sometimes we leave things out there in the yard and we don't remember to remove them. And then the mosquitoes breed up and then they bite us and then the diseases are spread. So it can happen very easily. Even if you're very careful, if things can happen. So I'm just urging that we take the necessary vigilance that is required to make sure that we keep our environments clean at this time and to do everything in our power to lessen the possibility of mosquitoes breeding and causing all kinds of problems around the place. All right? All right. The first thing on my mind then is the assassination attempt that was made on the life of former President Donald Trump last Saturday at a rally at which he was speaking in Butler, Pennsylvania. There are many things that people have said about this assassination attempt. There are those who traffic in conspiracy theories, of course, who have come up with their suggestions as to what might have taken place and the reason for what has happened. Some people have, unfortunately, I think, blamed the opposite political party, the Democrats, for having fomented this and for having a direct hand in the assassination attempt. These are not provable assumptions at this time because nobody knows for sure. The Federal Bureau of Investigation and the intelligence apparatus of the government they have been looking at the matter to determine exactly what went on, what were the motives of the shooter. Were there perhaps any accomplices looking through his telephone and any record they can find to ascertain whether he was just a lone person, whether he was part of a group, and what might have been the motive for doing this. And that is the correct thing to do. And I would humbly suggest to people that we allow the authorities to do their investigation, hear what they come up with, and consider that what they have come up with are what the situation is, are the facts of the case as much as they understand it. Let us not jump ahead of them with all kinds of assumptions on our own. And then we foment more problems by innuendos and response to situations that are not truthful. That's the very last thing that we'd want to do at this time. The country is very volatile politically. It is very divided in many ways. It was divided long before the shooter shot at the former president. And there is the division in the society is just palpable. You can feel it. And so we have to be very careful and to allow the authorities to do their work so that we don't come up with all kinds of assumptions that can cause more problem. Because it cannot be said truthfully at this point at all, if at all, that the Democrats had a direct hand in this, as is being, trumpeted by some people. What we do, what has come forward so far is that at this point is that the shooter acted alone, that he was a loner. And as I said, we don't know that for sure, but the authorities are looking at that. And so let us allow them to do their work. Another thing I note is that, the killing of our political leaders, especially our presidents, the presidents of the United States, the killing of the presidents, although it might not happen frequently, but if you look at the long political history of this country, it would appear that it has become almost a cultural phenomenon. We have had 4 presidents that have been killed, assassinated. We had Lincoln, Garfield, McKinley, and then Kennedy. But apart from those, there are 3 others that have been injured by the gun. And of course, the famous one, Ronald Reagan. Then there was Theodore Roosevelt. And of course, now Donald Trump. I say it has become almost something of a cultural phenomenon because it is something that seems to have become kind of embedded in the minds of, in the consciousness of some people in this country. Perhaps some groups in this country. That the best way forward is to take out those with whom we disagree. To cauterize their ascendancy to power. And this is very unfortunate because America is a country founded on the ideal of democracy, founded on the fact that all views must contend or ought to contend, and at the end of the day, the best ones will prevail, and that the people are at the center, and they are the ones who at the end of the day will make the determination in terms of what should be, presented as something that they can stand up to and stand up for. They're the ones who make the determination. And so when we disagree with others, we don't have to hurt them. Worst, we don't have to kill them. And that is a lesson that must go out in the minds of people, especially at this time when the politics has been engaged, and it is because it's going to get hotter and hotter as we go into November. So it doesn't make any sense that we assign blame and we play the blame game as to who did this or who did that. Nobody knows for sure, as I said. But it doesn't serve anybody's best interest, certainly not the country's, that we can indulge in this blame game that is going to cause perhaps more violence down the road. Let us be clear that there are people out there who see this kind of volatility and this kind of incendiary rhetoric that you often hear, this kind of division. There are people out there who are willing to take advantage of it, perhaps even to make a 15-minute fame for themselves. This is a large society, and there are many people who can use these situations as an occasion to make a name for themselves, however dastardly that is. But it serves nobody's interest to perpetuate, this kind of negativity, especially at this time. So what Mango Tree Dialogues would like to urge people is to cool the temperature. That is what the President Biden has urged, that we take the temperature down. He himself was very magnanimous in his response to the shooting incident in Pennsylvania. He immediately called former President Trump, had a conversation with him. Seemed to have been a very cordial conversation, as it ought to be. America is bigger than any of those men. America is not about them. They are contesting for power. So there ought to be this cordiality. There's no need for any one side to tear down the other side. What does it profit other than cause more problems in the society? So that was the right tone to take. And the former President Trump seemed to have been very gracious too in accepting the hand that was held out to him. You're talking about a man's life. He could have been killed. There's some people who are saying it was divine intervention that saved him. But certainly if he probably had turned his head in a certain direction, we would have been talking about a different story today. And perhaps we'd be talking about a different kind of society that would continue to be torn at its fabric. So they are taking the right tack. And we would want to urge the society to be very, very careful as we go forward. Take things down a notch. And let us try to be neighborly as much as it lies within us. As I said in my brief statement after the shooting last Sunday, let us all be neighborly, esteem others, seek the best welfare of others. Let us not render evil for evil, but as far as it lies in each one of us, let us seek peace. That's the only way we're going to build a strong and a viable society. So the Republican convention is on its way, started yesterday, and former President Trump has appointed his vice president, and Vance. He's going to be speaking at the convention sometimes this week, probably Thursday. And he has said that the speech that he was going to give, he has torn it up because the shooting has changed things, shaken up things a bit. And what he wants to do is to see if he can steer the country in a direction of unity. Well, we have heard the speech. And we know the former president's disposition, both by what he has said in the past and what he has done in the past, to stoke violence, violent rhetoric, like happened in the run-up to the assault on the Capitol building on January 6, 2021. Sorry, January 6, 2024. Yes, 2021. I'm getting my math. Sorry, friends. We got a moment there. And so he's taken the right position if he's going to go in the direction of unity. But we will see. We will see when he gives his speech what direction he will go in. We hope to God that it is one that sets the right tone for people to seek peace instead of vengeance and revenge. We hope that it will be a direction in which whatever the better angels in all of us, that those can begin to emerge. They have been subdued for too long. Perhaps we might be able to see a turning point at which a new kind of politics can begin to emerge. I'm not naive to think that you can have immediate transformation into saints. It doesn't work like that. But we can at least begin a process where we can recognize that we are all Americans and that we begin to sow seeds of love that can lead to fruits of peace in these difficult times. All right, so enough of that for now. Another thing that I wanted to touch base on is the continuing controversy in the Democratic Party with whether the President Biden should be the one going forward as the representing the Democratic ticket in November. You know, we have said some very strong things on this, and I don't think it is that fruitful to go over to worn paths. We've walked over some pathways already, and I think it is well cemented in the minds of people where Mango Tree Dialogue stands on where the president is. But, you know, one thing about politics is that it is a moving game. Yesterday's politics doesn't necessarily look like today's. And tomorrow's you cannot even see what that is going to be, although present events can foreshadow what things can be in the future. One does not have a crystal ball that one looks in and say that this is going to happen. At one point, I was thinking that somehow by this week, we would have had a resolution of this matter. But look what happened on Saturday. That has thrown everything out of kilter. Who knew that a young man, 20-year-old, was going to try an assassination attempt on the former president of the United States? And that has thrown a whole lot of things out of gear. And people are looking at things perhaps in a different way. So now, how I'm seeing the situation is that it is very fluid. Certainly one doesn't know precisely what can happen. One thing I do know, though, or one thing I do believe very strongly, is that whatever direction the party decides to go in, they have to have a resolution by the end of this month. They cannot go into August, and even the end of this month is too far. They cannot go into August without a very strong indication to the people of this country of who the person is that is going to represent them in the election. We don't, as August dawns, you have really just 3 months. And you have to settle the matter so that you can be put on a strong path of campaigning. And campaigning means presenting yourself to the people as a viable alternative to the other side. This cannot go on beyond July, whichever way it is going to fall. And frankly, most things are in the hands of President Biden. He's the man to whom all these delegates have been pledged. He's the man to whom all the money that has been raised for the campaigning, over $200 million, I understand that they have in the kitty, in the coffers, at their disposal that they can use. He is a man who stands on the bridge. And he's the only one who can determine what direction he wants to go. He thinks that, at least he tells us, that he feels very strong and he feels that he's a person who is best able to beat Trump. And he has said categorically that he's not going anywhere. He's running. But we want to know that by the end of July, if he's running, that is set in stone, and then that is the way forward, and that all contenders and all views that are contrary to him running right now will see in what he has said that it is his determined path, and begin to coalesce around him. The 60% or 70% of people out there who are still saying that his age is a problem, it is a constituency that is very important. But I believe that if people see that there is a determined resolution, that Biden is their man, and there's no other person, that they will too begin to have a second look at him and say, all right, because we cannot vote for the they're not going to be able to vote for the alternative. And if Biden is the one going forward, then people must line up behind him and back him. But they can't do it in August. They have to know by at the very least, the end of July. That's how I see it. So that people can know for sure just in what direction they should begin to look. They need to know. And if he's a man, then certainly we have to give him all the backing that he'll need. I won't say any more about this just now. And we will see where we go. But I would urge that there be an abundance now of common sense, which is not always common, but an abundance of that right now, and that the party does the right thing. Or you will, or instead of fouling up its chances and allowing former President Trump to probably slide through by default. You have to be very careful going forward. All right, so having said that then, and promised you that we're going to have a discussion about some of these matters, and we're going to be joined very shortly by our friend Brian, as he joins me in this discussion on these very important subjects. Trying to get Brian established there. So Brian comes in. You know, there are people who have some really strong views about where Mr. Biden should be. And some of those views are compelling. I've had my own, and I've said them very straightforwardly. And we hope that, you know, people, one thing you don't want is hypocrisy. You want people to be very clear about what they believe in and to state it. Some people have been very upfront, and I admire that. And I think it's not a matter of being bold. It's a matter of just representing what is on their heart. And that is what people should do. All right, so Brian has joined us. Good evening, Brian.
Hi, Ralston. How are you?
Very well, man. Very well. I hope you've had a good day.
Yeah, yes, for the most part. Another day in the books, you know, above ground.
So you've had a good holiday.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you. I've been sitting here listening to you give your comments on the events of the last couple of days. It's been wild, to say the least. to say the least.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, it has been a very, very
tumultuous.
tumultuous. Yeah, that is the right word.
Yeah,
I'd say interesting, except perhaps in the Chinese sense of interesting.
yeah.
All right, so you have heard my ramblings. And I'd like to hear your views. We're going to start first with looking at the assassination attempt on the former
Yeah,
president's life, uh,
yeah,
and to quickly hear what's your view and how do you view it and what do you have to say about it?
yeah. I got to be honest with you. I don't agree with a lot of things that the GOP and even Donald Trump and
Mhm.
people of his ilk purport day to day, you know. But one thing I know for sure, I don't want to see harm come to these people,
No.
physical harm, At the end of the day, at the very least, you have to see the humanity in every situation, This man has kids, he has a
Mhm.
family. Um, he goes through life with the same ambition and hope and aspirations as any other human being on the planet. That being said, his views and policies may um, seek to demonize others and to, essentially tamp down the other's ability to obtain freedom and self-autonomy and things to that nature. However, you know, um, his heart beats blood just like anyone else, right?
Oh, yes, definitely.
So for that purpose, I don't necessarily agree with anyone who says things to the effect that this is something that was a good thing. I've actually said it here on your show. Um,
Mhm.
I don't want to see anybody get assassinated. That's not a world I want to live in, We, like you've mentioned in your brief synopsis, we've seen, multiple presidents get gunned down in the prime of their lives, no matter what side of the fence they were on. He himself has seen two other attempts on his life. The job of the president is to be a target. It really is. You're putting a big target on your back
Yes.
because there are people out there that believe in a specific ideology so much, whether
Mhm.
it be right, middle, or left, that they're willing to take up arms for it. And I agree that the appropriate message right now is to condemn it. I think Biden handled it with tact. He called Donald twice and he said, "Hey, man, like, yeah, you and I may not agree on things, but I don't want to see you dead. Like, that's not the way this goes, So, and something that resonated with me personally was when he said, "We settle our differences at the ballot box." I agree with that. We're a republic. We're a constitutional republic. Like we are practicing democracy here. Like, we go out and we our voice make our voices heard through our vote. And I've said that to people that I've worked with in the past. Like, I don't care who you vote for. I really don't. Just vote, because there's so many people that have lost their lives for the right to vote in this country, in addition to so much work that still needs to be done with the ability to vote, for a lot of minority groups and other interest groups here in the nation. So therefore, everybody needs to exercise that that right. And I just don't think that violence is ever the answer in these circumstances. It actually makes things way worse. So
Right.
that would be my 2 cents on that.
All right. And there are some people who have, all kinds of conspiracy theories abound at this time.
Huh?
And one can understand it. It is a product of the volatility of the politics, for
Yeah.
one. But at the same time, it is a notion that there are notions that people have harbored over the years,
Mhm.
that cause people to think in certain directions.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've heard, which I think is pretty asinine, frankly,
Mhm.
is that the GOP engineered this
Mm,
as a way of soliciting empathy for Mr. Trump going forward so he could win the election.
yeah.
I don't even know if it merits comment, but if you want to comment on that kind of conspiracy, because it's out there in people's minds. I've heard
Yeah,
it.
for sure, for
I don't
sure.
know if you've heard it.
I've heard quite a bit. Yeah, actually, I saw a video today that a commentator online put out that kind of went down that rabbit hole. Look, conspiracy theories in America is as American as apple pie, right? Like as long as there's been in America, there's been conspiracy theories,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
you have people that run around thinking that the moon landing is faked and the
Yes.
world is still flat and all this crazy stuff,
And vaccines.
Yeah, vaccines, like all of that. I think the conspiracy theories is a product of our failing education system. It really is.
Yes.
Yeah. Because of the fact that, again, we go back to the theme here. Like, we've talked about this theme in some of our previous conversations that there is feelings and then there's facts, you
Right.
know. And I follow a science educator. His name is Neil deGrasse Tyson, and he often tells people that science doesn't care about your feelings, right?
Exactly.
And it's so true, right? Because it's like
It's
if
what
you
it
have,
is.
yeah, you have hard facts, 1 + 1 = 2, right? These things make up this situation, right? So therefore, you could feel however you want, but this is the facts, right? In this particular case, the entire campaign, whether it be Biden's campaign or Trump's campaign, is fueled on feelings, right?
Hmm.
It is fueled on feelings. And when something like this happens, it's easy to go down that rabbit hole. Perfect example. Trump is a man who does not tell the truth for anything.
Hmm.
That's just his MO. That's his motive. That's the way he operates. So when something like this happens, people who are opposed to Trump might look at that and say, well, you look like the type that would stage this. You spent time in the WWF. You've, you've been somewhat of a celebrity your whole life. You have the right context to make this up, right? The people on the right will look at it as, see, they'll do anything to stop him because he's poised to win, right? But on both sides of those conversations, you have to think about this. Two people are dead.
Hmm.
They didn't fake it 2 deaths, did they? Right? You got the shooter who lost his life through the Secret Service, and you have the person who actually got hit by
Okay.
the. Okay, so what do you tell that family member when you now are saying this whole thing is staged? You
That's it.
say that this person died for nothing, really? Like, it's insulting. It really is.
It is. It is.
And it goes kind of back to the how egregious like the situation with Alex Jones was because these people lost their kids. And here you are telling me, no, this was fake, you
Right.
know. So I think it's a very insensitive comment to make. I think it's a very ill ill-backed, comment to make. It may make you feel good in the moment, but ultimately it's not going to serve any purpose other than creating more rhetoric, and ginning up the fever that is our political system right now.
Right. And if the shooter was really put up to that, he would have had to be very precise because I don't think the conspiracy would have had him shooting the president or even touching him at all.
Would
And
you
it was
use
a
real
bullet
bullets?
that,
Yeah,
that hit his ear.
yeah.
And if
Would
it
you
turned a
would
certain direction, then he could have been
you would have been
killed.
hit? Yeah,
So people
actually,
must think. You see, that is one of the
yeah,
big problems that we have in
yeah,
this society. There are too many people who walk on their brains.
yeah. I
And
agree.
the conspiracists,
Hmm.
who come up with these things.
Because
You
it's easy to create. A
Yeah,
conspiracy theory can be created in a moment. All you need is a catalyst, right?
it doesn't take any
This
deep thinking at
situation,
all.
and then I'm going to create this narrative. And
Right.
then if you get enough people, like once the narrative is put out, and once the genie is out of the bottle, then
Yes.
it's like, okay,
Take
I
legs.
heard this, and it's like playing a game of telephone. everybody who hears it adds a little something to it, and it gets out of hand, unfortunately. And you're right. If it was staged, why even use real bullets?
Right, right.
Why even risk that? You know what I'm saying?
That's the
'Cause
point.
it's a
The man could
50%
have,
chance you might hit your target, and
and it,
then you're gonna come back and say, "Oh, I was trying to miss him." Like, like, wait, who does that?
it is just crazy.
Yeah.
All right, there's another thinking that that is, well, this one is factual in the
Mhm.
sense that President Biden did say it
Mhm.
about the question of the bullseye.
Yeah.
President Trump will have a bullseye,
Mhm.
on his
Yeah.
back, something to that effect.
Yeah.
In a previous comment that he made way before this incident took place. And
Mhm.
there are people who are saying that not only is this uh, insensitive, but that it was a direct contributor,
Mhm.
this man doing this. What do you think of that?
So I think both sides um, share blame for this political tension.
Hmm.
Um, you don't want to talk about whataboutisms.
Hmm.
However, I've watched videos with Marjorie Taylor Greene with high-powered rifles shooting and blowing up cars.
Hmm.
We have this narrative about the battle for our nation and this and that. Our politics is steeped in the context of violence. That
Hmm.
there that you're at war at all times. Even the colors, the red versus the blue. Are you a red state versus a blue state?
That's
I
right.
think that the narrative is created in this manner to keep us polarized, right? The system is built upon, you know, um, a scenario in which all you need is a spark, right? In this case, perfect example is the situation here. I'll be honest with you. When I first heard it happen, my immediate thought was this guy is going to win the election, period, because of the
Hmm.
sympathy vote, right? But
Hmm.
then that's your immediate response to hearing something like this. But then when you really start thinking about the situation, you're like, well, the facts are the facts, right? You can't really just jump too far ahead, right? But I think both sides of this conversation need to cut it out. A
Yeah.
couple of months back, you had people driving their trucks trying to run Biden's convoy off the road and having a truck with Biden hog-tied in like a effigy of him hog-tied in the back of the car, the FJB slogans, all of that stuff. It's
Hmm.
like gamesmanship is one thing. Yeah, you can make fun of me, you could talk trash, my team versus your team. That's cool. Because once the election is over, you hope that one side or the other will accept the results and we move on. Your
Right.
team lost this time. Sorry, better luck next time. Right? My team loses next time. Oh man, that sucks. But you know what? You guys won fair and square. But the fact that we create this energy of the battle, the war, that take our country back, like it's too much. And I think both sides need to find a way to level that out until it's eliminated and say, okay, we're not talking that way anymore. And not that long ago, not to run too long in this point, but not too long ago, folks like John McCain had a sense of duty of America before
Right.
anything else. When they called out Barack Obama and said that he was a Muslim and this, that, and the third, he was like, absolutely not. He said, I'm
Hmm.
not listening to that. And this is what they need to do. They need to say no, like pump the brakes. Sorry, these are the facts. I know you feel that way, but I'm going to correct you. And maybe you may not want to vote for me after you correct me. I correct you, but you're going to hear the truth today, and that's what we need to do.
Well, what a far way we have come from that kind of civility. Do
Yeah.
you do you think that that kind of civility at all will even attend the rest of this election into November?
This election, no.
This election.
Unfortunately, yeah. I think it's going to be incumbent on if there's people to come after this, and God forbid, unfortunately, something terrible will happen, in order for people to take a step back and say, "Oh my God, like this is atrocious what happened." This could have been the catalyst to that, honestly,
Mhm.
because his supporters would have been beside themselves to be like, wait a minute, did you guys do this? You know what I'm saying? And as much as the other side would have said, no, we didn't, they want their pound of flesh. You know what I'm saying? So um, I think and I hope for our own sake that nothing like this actually occurs. And we just come to a point where say, yes, all right, yeah, we'll beef about our differences, but we should not be picking up arms against other Americans. Like that's not how we operate in this country, you know.
Right.
Um, that should be the message.
Trump has said that he was going to present a speech, but that particular speech he has torn it up because the past events have the assassination attack
Mhm.
has shaken everything up, and is going to come with a different kind of emphasis on unity going forward. What do you think of that? You think there's any capacity for that kind of you
So
know, unity coming from that side, given what has happened in the past, the
I'd
rhetoric
like to
in the
think
past?
so. I would like to think so. I
Mhm.
would like to think that any human being who's just been literal millimeters away from their demise
Hmm.
look at the world through a different lens and say, whoa, like, am I to blame for this? Like even some introspection at some point and say, wait a minute, what would cause anyone to try to do this of all things? Yeah, we talk a lot of smack, but we don't shoot at each other. Like, um,
Right.
I would like to think that he comes to some form of like moment where it's now real. Like, oh yeah, like I can't continue this path because someone is going to get hurt. Um, Look at January 6th. Someone died there, um, with the lady who climbed through the window and the Secret Service had to put her down.
Exactly.
You had them screaming chants of hang Mike Pence. It's like we're at the gates right now. Okay. And now they took a shot at you. Okay. Someone who's reported to be a conservative and a registered Republican. It always comes from inside the house, right? So my thing would be if he comes out and says, we've talked a lot of 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 this for a very long time. It's time to change the conversation. I can debate Joe Biden without being, you know, riling up people to come to arms about it like that. We have political differences, we have ideology differences, but we're both Americans. And I think if he does that, he might sway some people to say, oh, you know what? That was a really decent thing for him to change directions. But we have to
The,
wait to see.
the only question that is hanging over my mind is whether he has the capacity for
He hasn't shown anything to this
that. You
point
know,
that he's capable of doing that, unfortunately. And that's
yeah.
why, although I'm hopeful that he would make that shift, I doubt it will come. I think it'll be temporary if there is a shift, and then he'll go right back to his nature, which is the name calling and the nicknames and all the stuff. He has to show that he's above it now. Okay. Biden showed that. Biden called him. Biden could have
Mhm.
not, he could have just said, oh yeah, sorry for your luck, man. Like, hey,
Yeah.
sorry.
Glad you're alive.
The fact that Trump still hasn't called the wife of the firefighter who lost his life, but he's calling his friends and he's boasting and he's got the patch over his ear. It just seems like more of the same, unfortunately, at this moment. And the fact that this lady even came out and says, I'm still gonna vote for him,
Mhm.
like he didn't call you, he didn't anything, he didn't even, so
I did see his demeanor when he walked into the convention yesterday,
mhm.
and he did look a bit subdued.
Yeah,
I agree with you that he must have had some coming to self moment
yeah,
where he said, this is a wake up call for me personally because he could have been killed
yeah. I think
just
he's
like that,
terrified.
and I think he sees
Mhm.
how closely
Yeah,
came to death. And if that does not exercise your mind in a direction
You're
of
inhuman.
recognizing your mortality
Yeah.
to the point that you become humble, I don't
Yeah.
know what else can do it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really don't know,
I,
except divine intervention.
and that's the thing. Like when I saw the video of him walking into that convention stage, I was like, this man is terrified right now.
Yes, you could see
Because
it on his face.
any of these people could be the next one to take a shot at him, and
Yeah.
he has no control over the situation.
No, who do
You
I
know,
trust?
I personally, you wouldn't find me in that place. I'm sorry. Like this was 2 or 3 days after somebody tried to take me out. You want to tell me that this place is secure? It's a bigger venue with more dark spots and more.
Yes.
Every sound that you hear, you're gonna be like, looking over your shoulder.
And
And
this, yeah, go
I,
ahead.
I just think that like you said, like, in that moment, you have to sit back and think, like, so, to double down on that point, I remember when people said at January 6th, there were people in the trees with sniper rifles.
Hmm.
And he told the Secret Service, they're not going to hurt me. That's what
Yes.
he told them. He goes down, stand on there. And now they're shooting at him. So I'm sure now he must have had like, oh, maybe these people may not be on my side as I thought they were. So
And whatever they may make of the conspiracy theories, there's one thing to me when I look at the whole narrative surrounding the shooter,
mhm.
that this guy, well, the FBI and the others are doing their work, but this guy, it appears, acted alone. And if he acted alone, then can you imagine how many other loners like him are out there? And how safe can I be?
Yeah, yeah.
Because if you cannot blame the Democrats with any kind of evidence,
Mhm.
then what more could be out there waiting? So when he stands on the stage at any other time, he has to do so with a certain amount of timidity.
Yeah, for sure. Because this guy, like you said, he acted alone,
Yeah.
no backing. All he had
Honestly,
was his father's rifle, right? Imagine the state-sponsored one who's been trained not to miss. You know
you
what I
see,
mean? Like
woman,
that's who I'd be worried about. I'd be
that,
worried about the guy who portrays to be, you know, part of my protection detail that may have been turned or may have had some form of financial issue in their life and now is, maybe bought and paid for by some foreign agency somewhere or some foreign government, and their objective is to do me harm.
all right.
I
If
think that's
many,
where my brain goes. You know what I mean? Like, oh, are the people protecting me legit? Like it took you guys how I got a cut ear. How come he got that close? How come he got
mhm,
within 50 yards of me? If you
mhm.
guys are securing this, that's who I would be thinking. That's how I would be thinking. So now you're gonna tell me you're gonna secure a convention center? I would be timid is the least of what I'd be feeling. I'd be
and, and,
I gotta
and
go give a speech now? Like no. With lights shining in my eyes, like I won't know where it comes from. I'd be looking over my shoulder left and right.
yeah,
So
and history tells us that it were the bodyguards of Indira Gandhi who killed her.
mhm.
You
Yeah,
know, and
January 6th, you had
uh,
the
and
people
I only
coming
say
in
that right, and I only say that to say that hey, it could come from any quarter, and
anymore. Yep.
so it suits him
Yeah.
and in his best interest, as it is in Biden's, to tone down the rhetoric and
Mhm.
really, seek peace and unity. That is the best pass way forward.
Yeah.
But one last question on this, and then we want to quickly look at Biden's continued pursuit of the Democratic ticket. One last question. The Democrats, saying what we just said a while ago about the need for unity and peace and all that, do you think that the Democratic message in terms of presenting to the country what it thinks about Trump, should that be toned down? Should that be muted? Should that be denuded? Or should they be just as strong before the shooting in telling the people, you know, the other side that they're contesting against? Because there are some people who said that, in the interest of peace and unity and so on, that they cannot be tearing into Trump too much. You
No.
know, but what do you think of that?
I think you need to continue stating the facts.
Hmm.
Leave the painting of the picture of, the battles and you know, all this hyped up verbiage for, that could be contorted into it's a call to action, other than to vote, I think you need to keep hitting the same five notes on this song here.
That's right.
Project 2025, women's rights, democracy around the world, as it pertains to foreign policy and the betterment of people's lives overall in this country.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
can create that message without the hostile rhetoric. You can. And the man helps you because all he does is lie.
Oh, yes.
So fact check him. That's it. That's all you got to do. Fact check him and
Right.
show the receipts. That's it. Yep. And do
Right.
it in a way that people understand. Don't sit at your high horse and talk down to people. Talk to them like people. Hey, this is what you might lose, if you vote the other way.
Okay, so on that question, then the final consideration is what do you think of Biden proceeding as the candidate
He
into?
has to be the candidate, I think. I think he has to be the candidate. Yeah, I think he is capable of beating Trump. I think there's enough people in this country that know Joe Biden enough to say no, he's the guy. I think after this situation on Saturday, he's shown again that he is capable of compassion, and he put
Mhm.
aside the politics and he called him. That was the first thing he did, and he stood united with his VP and his DOJ and his security folks and says, no, we're gonna investigate this, and then he came back on TV and he told people, now listen, we spoke. It was a short call, but it was a call, and that's what we needed to talk. We took a pause and we spoke to each other. So I think Biden is the candidate, to win the election. Okay.
Do you think that in the past 2 weeks or so, he has been making the case as cogently as he ought to in these interviews and public appearances? He's been
I
giving
think he's always been. He had a bad night with the debate. The
debate. Yeah.
debate was in June. If you're still thinking about his debate performance, then you're almost a month in the past. Let's think about today. Let's talk about today. Let's talk about the fact that the stock market is doing well. All right. Let's talk about the fact that the jobs report was put out, and the jobs are moving again. Let's talk about the fact that inflation is cooling off. Let's talk about the fact that interest rates will be coming down in the fall. Let's talk about all those things. Those
Right.
are those are wins, and yes, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. Like people's lives are getting better by the day now. So it's like, lean into that. If you change now, it just seems like a last ditch effort, knee jerk reaction to a bad debate. Now, if he doesn't do well on the next debate, yeah, maybe you might have to have that conversation like, look, man, um, you definitely need to make a decision here. But I think he's the candidate to win the election. Yeah.
They can wait until the last debate because I think that is October, and
You know what I mean?
to make
Yeah.
it move for November would be too late.
You
So
know who's another group that I think he needs to reach out to? I think he needs to reach out to Nikki Haley voters.
yes,
I think he really, because she's about to speak on the convention stage.
right. To
I
be
think
to
tonight or
what
the
she
night
has to
after.
say. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, hey, he needs to put that message out before she starts speaking.
So you're not too concerned about the 60 to 70%, if it is that much now, in who are concerned about his mental competence in going forward.
No, I think all those folks are giving. I think they are. So I think in this scenario, they need to get on board, right? The old saying falls true again. Democrats fall in love, Republicans fall in line, right?
Yeah.
This is our candidate. Okay. You have people like Bill Barr, okay, Nikki Haley, JD Vance, okay, that were all Trump is the worst thing out.
Mhm.
Okay. Nikki Haley is going to talk at the convention. Bill Barr came out this week and said he's voting for Trump. The lady whose husband was murdered is voting for Trump. And then now Nikki Haley's going to give a speech at the convention. And now you got folks like George Clooney and all these, Hollywood superstars coming out and saying, no, Biden needs to step aside. Like how is one party so like, no, this is our candidate. The man is a convicted felon, an adjudicated rapist, okay, and they're still voting for him
Mhm.
because the party comes first. We don't care about him as the man. On our side, or if you want to call it the left, if they don't like you this week, then you need to step aside. You need to retire. You need to go away. You need to get canceled. And I think that's a mistake. I think we need to have more grit and we need to fight and say, no, this is the guy. He got us this far. Let him finish the job. You know,
Right. Just to say that he's an adjudicated sexual abuser.
yeah,
He's just a judge at a point about the
yeah.
rapist part of it, and
How is this guy even a nominee? Like, I mean, let's face it, like this happened. Okay. That alone, people like perfect example. After that, no one came out and said, oh, Donald, you got to step aside. When they had 80 something indictments, hey, Donald, listen, we can't have that stain on the Republican Party. They doubled down, they tripled down.
Yes.
He was convicted of 34 felt counts.
People must not forget that it is the Republican Party that has visited this atrocity really on the country
Yeah.
to have a candidate of that caliber
Yeah, and
representing
and
them.
this and what's Biden's issue? He's old. Like, like he's like, I mean, yeah, he's an old man. He's an
No,
old man.
no, he's
Yeah.
just 3 years older than the other man.
Yeah, 3 years. That's it. So it's like, it's one thing if you said like Trump was like 50,
Yeah,
he's 80. Like, okay, well, yeah, maybe maybe he needs to get someone who's willing to run at his speed, let's say.
yes,
Like if you can't run a campaign against someone who's a convicted felon and an adjudicated rapist, then you're doing the wrong thing. Your messaging is off. Your messaging is wrong. So
okay,
hit them where it hurts, and it doesn't have to be violent. It doesn't have to be this vitriol. It can be just facts, and it's enough. It really is.
that's right.
Motivate people to vote. That's all you got to do.
That's right. Well, Brian, that's gonna do it for us this evening.
Sir.
You see me reaching across,
Yes, I do.
picking some mangoes from the mango tree here.
Okay.
Just
Mhm.
picking
They
it.
look good. They
Look
look
at these
ripe.
mangoes, man.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
Hmm.
And that tree behind me
Yeah.
bore all of these things, man,
Oh,
that
that's awesome.
that I was going to destroy.
Mhm.
If you happen to be near me, just drop me a note and you can come and pick up a few of them, man.
Absolutely.
Um,
Sounds like a
God,
plan.
God has to help me this time that I don't pick up pre-diabetes.
Oh yeah, with the sugar, yeah, for sure.
The way
Yeah.
we have been eating them. But I really wanted to have one or two of them, man. So if you are gonna be near me, just give me a shout and I'll get you some.
Will do, will do. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you, my brother. Well, friends, thanks very much for joining us this evening under the mango tree. Uh, we are very happy to have had you with us, and we trust that our discussion has been a source of information to you, but also that as you go forward, you have been encouraged to, especially those of you who need to vote, who know you ought to vote, to be more exercised about what you ought to do as you get the facts. And we hope we have given you some facts this evening. Thanks again, and do have a very good night. And whatever you do, walk good. Bye bye.